I am happy to be joined with the CEO of Tryp Therapeutics. He is Jim Koo. He's based out of La Jolla, California. How are you, sir?
Excellent, Chad. Great to talk to you.
How's life out west in California? Obviously a good place to be, not only during COVID, but any time of the year, is it not?
Yeah, we don't have too much to complain, except maybe our government. So that's about it. So,
Well, that's pretty much the same wherever you go. Rains what, maybe 3-4 days out of the year in La Jolla?
yeah, something like that. We're actually a desert. We just get all the water from the Colorado River. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's lush, despite the fact it's normally not that.
Yeah. Well, let's begin. We're obviously doing a lot of coverage with Tryp Therapeutics, a big player in the psychedelic space. So let's begin. News this week from Tryp Therapeutics, an incredible addition to your team this week. Dr. Robin Carhart Harris, the world's basically foremost psychedelics expert, has been added to your scientific advisory board. This is the doctor with more published research and papers on psilocybin than anyone else in the world. So what is I guess he bring to the table, and what do you think attracted him to your story, Tryp Therapeutics?
Yeah, thank you, Chad, for mentioning that. And let me say, I've had the privilege of being able to get on multiple calls with him and
Yep.
question him about our drug development programs. And I really think he is the guy. He's really arguably the leader in this particular field. If anyone wants to learn more about him, they can go on YouTube and listen to his talks. He has one or two on TED as well, and he is the leader. And it's pretty much our philosophy at Tryp. Go to the leaders in this particular field and work with them. They're the ones who are best educated and guided and do the most research, most well known in the particular space of psychedelics. And we're actually plowing new ground in the whole area of using psychedelics for chronic pain as well as eating disorders. So
Yep.
there's a little bit of an unknown there, but we obviously need to avail ourselves with the experts in the field and get from them what they know currently on using it for treatment-resistant depression.
Makes sense. What do you think? Walk me through. How did the conversations begin? And like I said earlier, what do you think attracted him, obviously, to partner with the story that you're building out with Tryp?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So we were introduced to him through an intermediary of mine, and so
Okay.
it was very fortunate. Happened to be in the same town he was, so maybe there was some connection there before. I'm not sure, but we just introduce ourselves as we typically do anytime
Yep.
we want to work with someone, and just explain to him what we're all about, what we're trying to do. And he was just fascinated with it, and he thought these are some really interesting drug development programs that should be explored further. So he could not have been more excited to be working with us in making these discoveries in these two therapeutic areas.
I like to ask a lot of CEOs that we have on this platform, talking about the psychedelic industry as a whole. It's still very early. There's some fascinating interest in research that's taking place. Do you think that this industry in due time has, I guess, enough momentum that could change the healthcare system?
Yeah, I think this is one of the biggest stories that are going to be out in the media this year, and certainly one of the big revolutions taking place in the whole area of bioscience. So there was a revolution that took place in cancer. Psychiatric diseases have been really sidelined. There hasn't been very much innovation there. There was a Prozacs and Zoloft that were developed like 20 years ago, and they work modestly. They help some patients, but the big difference here with psychedelics is severalfold. One is they work on the majority of patients. Okay,
Yep.
that's not been seen even with the Prozacs and Zolofts. The second is that they have long treatment effects. From a single dose, you get effects that last weeks, months, could be even up to 6 months in certain patients. So, could you imagine if you had a pill that worked for that long in
That's
certain
incredible.
patients? It really is revolutionary. Third thing is that it works, at least in the case of depression, on patients who have not been treatable with any other therapy. So these are the most difficult class of patients out there. So we're seeing results, at least in the case of depression. And so this is the basis of this revolution that's taking place with psychedelics today. We're just pushing the frontier to see if it can work in other very crippling and disabling diseases like eating disorders. In particular,
Right.
we're focused on overeating disorders and also chronic pain. a huge problem. The actual scientific term is neuropathic pain. And, we're very excited to be part of this.
Well, I guess one of the reasons that really interests me with regards to Tryp Therapeutics, like in addition to having Dr. Harris on your board, you have a team of members that have gained FDA approval time and time again for various products. We always talk about research, and I know a lot of companies like to express the qualifications of research that they have, but you have a few members that have had numerous times and again to have FDA approval, which, let's face it, is the ultimate goal. So how important is it to have members of your team that have been down this road and have had successful, opportunities happen time and time again?
Yeah, we view it at Trip as really a team approach. Everyone brings something a little bit different to the table, but we're all very highly experienced. We're led by our chief scientist, Jim Gilligan, who's been there, done it before, been really quite successful. We have other members of the team, Tom
What's his,
D'Orazio,
what's his
Picuso.
background?
Yeah, he has done 505(b)(2) route. That's a
Okay.
specific FDA regulatory route that's used. So this is what we're talking about and why it's really relevant. So this is not a new chemical entity. This is a existing drug. It had been around since the 1950s and 60s. Actually had phenomenal results, even in clinical studies by multiple academic institutions. And then the whole thing was shut down by governments across the world. It became a scheduled drug. And only recently it's been discovered. So we're talking about existing chemical entity,
Yeah.
there's safety, some efficacy known. And so in those cases, you go through what's called with the US FDA, the 505(b)(2) route.
Yep.
And Jim Gilligan's been there and done that with a number of drugs. So we're very fortunate to have him as well as the rest of the team members.
Well, as you've said before, like a lot of these drugs have been around for 50, 60 years and then were classified as a Schedule 1 drug. Walk me through, if I'm an investor into this space and I'm interested, let's say, in your specific company, what do you hear on a daily basis from different government officials that are starting to look at some of this stuff differently?
Yeah, things are changing rapidly. They're changing rapidly because there's huge patient advocacy. So the families, the patients that are affected, the healthcare systems are all advocating for this. So I think one of the things that are part of revolutions, Walter Isaacson wrote about this, is whenever private industry works with government and works with academia. When
Okay.
all three things come together, that's when revolutions take place. And so it's certainly very important for government to start lowering the barriers. I think they're doing that with, when it comes to academic research, clinical trials taking place at major universities. I think they realize that that is a responsible scientific project, and so they're willing to, not abandon all sorts of regulations, but certainly lower it and allow that to occur. And that's what's happening rapidly today.
Yeah, it's exciting. Last thing I wanted to ask you, let's focus now on the investment side of things. You look at this again, you're appointing world-renowned doctors on your advisory board. You have a team with the extensive background in biotech with members that formerly were with Pfizer. When you look at the capital market side of things, let's face it, there's been a sophisticated capital showing hundreds of millions of dollars being raised by 3 or 4 major players within the biotech space. With Tryp, you seem to have an undervalued opportunity here for investors that may not have had a chance to get into this new, fresh space. So if you're a new investor, you're looking at this company, what would you say to them why Tryp would be a great investment for you?
Yeah, you highlight, I think, a really important point about our capitalization strategy, and that is that we're really focused on making money for investors. So I think what's the other companies have done is go out and raise a lot of money. Let
Yeah.
me tell you, that money's out there, and we could have done that as well, but we took a more, we think, thoughtful approach, which is raise less money. There's less dilution. We're going to put out news on our drug development programs as they advance and we meet our milestones. And as we would expect, hopefully that results in greater trading volume, hopefully a higher stock price. And we're wanting to bring our investors along that path. The term we use internally is public venture capital.
Right.
So it's not the big financing initially that's highly dilutive. It's really the smaller. We raise kind of just closer to what we need for a particular year, and then expect to meet our milestones, and then we'll probably raise further funding, move things along.
As they say, slow and steady wins the race, does it not?
Well, we'll see here, but that's our plan.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, I appreciate you obviously taking the time. I know you've been busy, but fascinating story that you guys are building. And let's keep in touch as we continue the dialogue going. It's a lot of interesting conversations I'm having with a lot of like great CEOs like yourself. But congrats on going public last month, and all the best in the short and long term.
Yeah, thanks for your time. Great talking to you.
All right. Thanks, Jim.